Kadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Kiddushin Daf Vav Amud Aleph 76a1 says the Gemara. We were speaking about the Kutim, if you remember, and we said yesterday that according to Rabbi Akiva, Kutim are Gerei Emet, but Kohanim that they got mixed up with them are Kohanim Ksherim, right? But so therefore, so why Be'emet then you're allowed to have? Why are you not allowed to get married to them? What's going on then? So he comes to the answer is because they do Yibum on an Arusa. If you remember, Yibum means that the husband dies without children, so the brother gets married to the wife. Now that could only be done by a Nisua, by a married woman, not by an Arusa. Arusa is the first stage of wedding, which is the first engagement, right? The Torah's engagement, so obviously it's a very important engagement, but it's not the same thing. So says the Gemara, my Darshi, what do the Kutim say that you would actually do? You would do Yibum on an Arusa. How does that make sense? So says the Gemara, it says in the Pasuk, Lo tieh eshet hamet hachutza lizar. It shouldn't be the wife of the deceased, should be outside to a stranger. Meaning, you want to keep her in the family. She got married, a meskin, right? The husband passed away without any children. So you want that she should get married to the brother in order that the child should be called al Shem Achiv, on the brother's name. So this one that she's going outside, she shouldn't be to a stranger. But this one that she's not going to be to a stranger, right? So therefore, they want to come and they want to say, at the end of the day, she cannot get married to anybody else. So since she cannot get married to anybody else, so for what's the difference between an arusa and nusua? Just like an nusua cannot get married to anybody else, so too an arusa cannot get married to anybody else. Rabbi Akiva, but according to Shittat Rabbi Akiva, he says, he goes according to his reasoning, but he says, Yesh mamzer mechayev lavin. Remember, Shittat Rabbi Akiva is that there is a mamzer to chayev lavin. What does that mean, chayev lavin? We know, right, that when we're talking about now, if a person comes and he gets married to a chayev lavin, which means a lav, a negative commandment, that is going to be a sur, and therefore the child will be also a mamzer. The yeshomri, and some people come and they say, right, he comes and he says, right, as follows. Some people come and they say, you know why, right? You cannot get married to a kuti because they're not medaktakim, which means, yeah, they do mitzvot, but in general, meaning, are they really being meticulous? They're very hafif. They're very superficial. So since they're being very superficial, so therefore we don't come, right? And we're not allowed to get married to the kuti. Right, and that's known, by the way, even in sects of Judaism, the same thing. Which means that you come, you're like, yeah, they do mitzvot. Very superficial. It's very, hafif, light. Fine. Says the Gemara, man yeshomnim. Who is the yeshomnim? Amar Ravidi bar Avin. Says Ravidi bar Avin. It's Elmaleh here. It's Elmaleh. The Tanyas we learned in a Braita. Matzat kuti muteret. Are you allowed to eat the matzah of a kuti? Yes. You could even be Yotzei Chovan on Pesach with the matzah of a kuti. Rabbi Eliezer said, but Rabbi Eliezer says no, asur. Why? If they're not bekim mitzvot, how many times could that happen that you have the halachot, you have to do it within 18 minutes, and you have to clean everything, and you have to, and if they're not precise and they're not meticulous in mitzvot, what happens? It's chametz on Pesach. So therefore, obviously, you're not allowed to. Shimon Gamliel says, kol mitzvah shechziku bakutim harbe medaktekim ba yoter miYisrael. This is something incredible, right? I actually asked halacha, right, once to a rabbi, right, and he wanted to compare a certain sect of Judaism to the Kutim, and he went and he said, you should know, the Kutim, if they took a mitzvah, that mitzvah is ad sof. Everything else is wishy-washy, yeah? But that mitzvah, you can't touch them. You cannot, you understand? Fine. So he says over here, so what does it mean here that there's not going to be bekin exactly? So he says over here, they're not experts in Girushin and Kiddushin. And therefore, since they're not experts in Kiddushin, that's why it's going to become a problem. Because if they don't know what is really a marriage, and what constitutes a divorce, and what constitutes a marriage, so then what happens? So then what happens is that all of a sudden you have a case where they're married, and they thought they were not married. Or they thought it was a divorce, and it wasn't a good divorce. And then all of a sudden you have big problems afterwards. So Amar of Nachman, Amar of Babara, who says Nachman Nimrav, who mamzer. מאחותו וממזר מאשת אח נתערבו בהן. You know, this is another reason why you're not allowed to get married to a kutit. You know why? He says because of a mamzer me'achuto or mamzer me'eshet ach, right? He says here many times they would actually come and they would do incest. You know what incest is? When you have an illicit relationship between family members. So, for example, a person went with his sister. So that's giluriyot, right? So that's a mamzer. Or if he goes with eshet ach is the sister-in-law, meaning the brother's wife, right? It's not the same thing as achuto, obviously, right? So therefore, right, what happens? That's also mamzer. So in both of these cases, right, they got, what does that mean? The two kutim, right, that come to get married, there's a problem because one of them could be a mamzer, one of them is kosher, and it's asurim, and therefore the rabbi said, you know what? Don't get married to any kutim. Don't get married to any kutim. Yes. Yeah. So he says, "My kamash balan." What does it come to teach you? Yesh mamzer mechayve kritut. That there's mamzer for kritut. These are karet, and therefore there's a mamzer that comes with. Meaning, if somebody comes with a woman, that if not only that there would be a death penalty, even if he goes with a woman, that the penalty is karet, which means that he gets cut off from the heavens. Mean that he dies early, but it's all right. But at the end of the day, there's a mamzer mechayve kritut. So nitzni chada. So why don't we just teach one of the cases? Why do we have to actually teach both cases, also from eshetach and also from achoto? Right? Both of them are mamzerim, and they're both the same karet. So he says, that was the story. The story was that you had these two types of mamzerim, meaning somebody went with his sister and somebody went with his sister-in-law. Two different people, not the same person. And what happened was they had children. And those children are obviously mamzerim. And those mamzerim went and got married within the kutim as if like nothing happened. As if like they didn't, nothing. So what happened? From then on, they said nobody could get married to the kutim. Why? Because this is mamzer. They got married. Now they have children. Those are all now mamzerim. Then they get married with other ones. And if they're not careful in the family body of who and when are they allowed to get married, so far there's going to be a lot of mamzerim. So because of that, they just said you're not allowed to get married to mamzerim, to the kuti. The Rava comes and he says, Eved v'shivcha nitarvu b'hen. No, it was an Eved and a shivcha. Remember that if an Eved or a shivcha has relations, right, with the kutim, so therefore what happens is that also, right, it's an Eved or a shivcha, which means, right, that the other one is a ger kasher, because remember, we're holding that gereh emeten, which means according to Shtat Rabbi Kiva, a kuti was a good convert. And even though he was a good convert, it doesn't help. You know why it doesn't help? Because if they went and they got married to an Eved, what's a child? An Eved. If they got married to a Shivcha, what's a child? A Shivcha. It's not a Jewish child. It's a Shivcha or an Eved. Right? Remember, the Goy or an Eved or a Shivcha, the child is like them, which means that it's not a Jewish child. So it's not a Jewish child. So and then they went and they started getting married amongst all the Kuti. So therefore, because of that, it was going to become a problem. So Yisura Mishumai, what is the Yisur? Mishum Shivcha. So just to teach one of them. Why do you have to say Eved v'Shivcha? Says the Gemara, that was the story. The story was it was both different cases, and that's why they had this. Okay, fine. Mishnah Na'ivav Mudale says the Mishnah, Hanose Isha Kohenet. If you want to get married to a woman that she's a Kohenet, which means that she's a daughter of a Kohen, Tzadik livdok acharea arba imahot. You have to look into her 4 mothers. Well, we're going to see what does that mean. Arba imahot means it's really 2 but it's from 2 different family members, right? From like the father and from the mother. Okay, so let's see what does that mean. It says here shtaim, right? 2 from the family of the mother and 2 from the family of the mother of the father, in order to make sure that there's no mamzerut or any psule kahal, which are 8, right? Which are going to be 8, right? Why? Because in order to you to check them, you're going to have to actually check 8 different women. So, for example, the truth is the best for this is a chart, right? But just, I don't know if anybody has a chart, but if not, then just pay attention. One more time. Woman number 1, Ima, the mother of this woman. Em Ima, the mother of the mother, which means her maternal grandmother. Next, Em Avi Ima, right? The mother of the father of this woman. Okay? The Ima and her mother. So therefore, you're going to have to now check mitzad the father, so it's the paternal, right, grandmother and her mother. Okay? Then you have to check Em Avia, the father of, right? It was the maternal, but it was exactly, but it's the mother of the father and her mother, and then the grandmother, right? Em Avia Via, Vima and her mother. So therefore, on each side, basically you have husband and wife. So when you're on the wife, there's also a husband and wife. So you have to go the wife, right? So you're going to go her mother, then that mother, the mother of the father, and then you're going to the husband. The husband, he also had a mother and father. So you also have to go mother, and then continue going. So that's why it's going to be 8 women. So it's true, it's only 2 generations up, right? But it's 8 women, technically speaking, because if you're going up 2 generations, you need 8 women, which are on the top, right? Right now, there's a husband and a wife, right? So that's 1 generation. When you're going up the 2nd generation, now all of a sudden you have 4 people, because you have mother, father. When you go up another generation, now you have 8 people. Okay, so it's 8 people, 2 generations up. Okay, so now it says Leviah, the Israelite. If you come to get married to a Leviah or Israelite, Mosifina lehen odachat. You have to go up 1 more generation. Okay, which means that 1 more of a pair, as if to say. Okay, so therefore he comes and says not only just the mother of these 4 mothers that we mentioned, but 1 more above. Now the reason why they were machmidim, right, more on a Leviah Israelite is because of the Eruv of Psuleh Mitzri, right, in the Levim and Israelim, which is more than the Kohanim, which means, remember, a Mitzri, the 3rd generation, there's not a problem. So if you went up now 3 generations, so now what's going to happen is that you don't have a problem, right? So therefore, that's why, because of the Mitzri, now obviously a Kohen can never get married to a Mitzri. So if it was only a Yisrael, that maybe they would get married to a Mitzri, and then it would go down 1 extra 1. So therefore, that's why they went and they added on an extra 1 because of the Mitzri. Okay? Lo en botkin lo min hamizbeach ulmala, velo min handuchan ulmala, velo min hasanedrin ulmala. What does that mean? We're not going to check the mothers, not from the Kohanim, that they're already bringing korbanot, right? Which means that if he's going to come to get married to a woman, right, and it finds out that one of her fathers, whether it's the father, is obviously a Kohen and serving the Bet HaMikdash, we don't have to check it. Velo mean haduchan lamala, or the one that's coming and singing. Remember that the Kohanim did the service of Bet HaMikdash, and the Leviim were the ones that were singing. Velo min hasanedrin lamala, or not from the Dayanim and upwards, right? Why? Because all these people, once they had a cheskak kashrut, you don't have to check anymore, right? Kol sheuchzeku avotav mishotrei harabim. Anybody that has a chazakah that his father's was from the Dayanim of the public, the Gabei Tzedakah or Gabei Tzedakah, Masin lekuna, they get them married to kuna. Why? Because these people had to be people with very, very good genealogy, right? Meaning that they looked into them. They wasn't just stam. The answer is livdok acharei, and then you don't have to check them. Rabbi Yosef says, Af mi shayach hatum ed be'arki, right? Shina shel tzipuri. The same halacha would apply to somebody that's going to be signed as a witness in arki, which is like the beddin of Tzipori, the old beddin of Tzipori. You don't have to check them as well. Says, also somebody that was already going to be in the Chayal of the Tzva Melech. Also, he was a soldier in Tzva Melech. The Gemara is going to explain why. Fine. Says the Gemara. Okay, so Gemara on the bottom of Ain Vav Amud Aleph, right? 76a. Says the Gemara, why is it that you're only checking the women and not the men? One more time. What did we say? We said that there are 8 women. Why are there 8 women? Yes, because basically you have the father and the mother, meaning the husband and the wife. You go up 1 generation, but it's the mother and the father, but it's it's basically, it's always the woman. It's always going up. Why always the women?
You know who is the mother?
Says the Gemara, Neshe Ichiminsu Bahadi Adadi Barayot Udeminsu. When women are going to start arguing, they're going to start arguing, right? And basically, they're going to put them down because of znut. Meaning, if a woman is already going to fight with another woman, she's going to say, you're a zuna, you're a prostitute, you're this, you're that, you're coquette, you know, and many times.
No.
They eat them. But it's always on the mother. You answered it yourself, doctor. It's always on the mother. It's not on him. He's allowed. He could think. Yeah. So if there's something, right? So he says, if there is going to be some type of a defect in genealogy, right? It's not going to have a call. So therefore, gavre, right? And therefore, we're going to say you have to check the yichus of a woman. But the men, right? They are going on genealogy. You know who I am? I come from this family. I'm high up there. So therefore, if there's something, it's going to find out in 1 minute. Meaning, if there's going to be a pgam and yuchasim, you would find out in 1 minute with the men, right? And to do with the women, you're not going to find out. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. But let her look into him. Why is it that the man has to check the woman's genealogy? And right, that means the lineage of where they come. And why doesn't the other one say way around? So says the Gemara, this goes according to Rav, which means that the Benot Kohanim, right, of Gshirot are not obligated, are not warned to get married to a Pasul, which means like this. A Kohenet, even if she gets married to a mamzer, not a mamzer, but let's say how do you call a halal, or all these things, there's no Isur. She's a woman. Remember, a Kohen has the obligation to look into very well who he's getting married to, because he can't just get married to whoever he wants. But the Kohenet does not have that obligation. So therefore, that's why he's saying she's not going to look into him because she doesn't have this obligation. What? Yeah. In certain places that when they get married, they purposely want to go up 4 generations. So it means in the Ketubah, you would have, right, the name of the Khatan, son of this, son of that, and son of that. And that comes from this idea. Now, it's not 100% because there you're only going to the fathers. Now, technically speaking, what happens if one of the mothers was not a good convert? Anything else doesn't. But especially, I know the Chalabim do that. So anyway, they don't accept converts. So that's so they're able to do that in a sense. So therefore, it's they're able to do that. Okay, fine. Ravada Barava Tani. So Ravada Barava comes and he taught Arba Imaot Shem Shtemestre. There's going to be 4 different mothers, which are going to become 12. Okay, and therefore, in order to check it well, that's what you're going to have to check. But in our Mishnah, we're talking about another Braita. It said 4 imahot, which is 16, right? And that's what we're going to ask now. I understand according to Ravada Bar Ava, Ayin Vava Mubet 76b. Mukim la beleviya ubat Yisrael. We're talking about a Leviya and Bat Yisrael, right? And therefore, that's why you only have to check 12 mothers. Okay, so it's not a stira to the Mishnah, but matznita. Right, name a plea. Obviously, it is going to be arguing if it's going to tell you now that it's going to be the 16th. So I'm saying, no, my odechad. What does it mean odechad? Odechad doesn't mean one other mother. It means zugachat. It's another group. So therefore, in every single zug, there's another 4. So therefore, it's not going to become from the 8 to 12, because when you say another 1, and you already had 8, another 1 means another level up, and therefore it's another 4. Or do you say another level up? It's another group, and if it's another group, it's going to be 8. So if it's become 16, not 12. So that's the machlok between them. Okay? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Says Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Aval hachamim omrim b'hachamim say, kol mishpachot becheskat kesherot hen umdot. All the families are becheskat kesherot, which means that until we don't know that there's a psul, there's a defect, we're going to say that they're kosher. Okay? So it says the Gemara, any is it so? We're talking about that there's an irud here, which means that there's going to be something going on over here, and therefore it's going to become a problem. So says the Gemara, you're right. The one that taught this one didn't teach the other one. There are those that say, yeah, he comes and he says, right? There are those that say, I'm reviewing them. Rav, these are the words of Rav. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Chachamim say, all the families are going to be becheskot kesherot. Okay? The Amar of Chama Barguria Amar Rav says of Chama Barguria in the name of Rav, Im Korea Alav Arar tzarich libdok acharei. If there is going to be an iur, so you do have to check afterwards. Okay? Fine. En bodkin min hamizbeach ulmala. We had a general rule. You don't check from the mizbeach and onwards. What does that mean? You don't check from the mizbeach and upwards. My time, what's reasoning? If they never checked it in the beginning, they wouldn't have brought him up. Meaning, if from the beginning already they didn't look into it, you don't have to check this. This, by the way, is halakha l'maaseh, right? I heard this klal, this general rule, applies in Israel, right? When they had the rabbanut, when they were in charge of marrying everybody off, this happened to them. Which means, if I come and I prove to you that they had a tildat nisuin from the rabbanut rashit, I don't have to look into them anymore. Because that means that the rabbanut rashit already looked into them to make sure they were kosher because they got somebody married to them. So therefore it's going to be okay. So this was very, very important because it once happened actually here in this kila that somebody wanted a Teudat Yahadut. meaning somebody wanted a piece of paper showing that they're Jewish. So I went and I told them, okay, fine, give me the ketubah, give me that. And all of a sudden I realized, one second, you guys got married in Israel. Yeah. So I said, so where's your Teudah Nissuin? And at the end, what happened is that they didn't have a Teudah Nissuin. They said, we never received one. So what do you mean you didn't receive one? So I went and I started looking into it, and I got them a Teudah Nissuin. Right? And now, why is it so important, this Teudah Nissuin? Because this is the best piece of paper that they need. Once they have this piece of paper, they don't need anything else. Now they got all upset and this and that because they were like, what am I looking into? But I told them, I'm trying to get you the most important paper. I'm getting you the best proof is this. Why? Because once you have this proof, we don't check upwards. That's it. I don't have to look upwards anymore. You understand? So he comes and he says like this. So then he says, right? The same thing. There's the ones that were there were only people who were miyuchasim. That's my word. Miyuchasim of kiuna or miyuchasim of leviyah. Okay? Yeah? Don't afterwards ask questions. Yeah? Not from the Sanhedrin and above. My time, what's the reasoning? The Tani Rav Yosef was Rav Yosef taught, just like betting, they always look into everything properly. They're going to be clean from all moons as well. Right? What does that mean? They're going to look into it properly. You understand? And therefore, what happens is they start looking and looking. And by the way, you should know, that's why it's so important also that any type of a marriage or any type of anything should be done with a good rabbi. Some people think you could go to any rabbi and get married. And it's a mistake. Because then what happened? Right? What happened in New York I think it was 2 years ago, or a year ago. Oh, yeah. You remember? The famous story in New York where basically an Arab got married to a Jew. Yeah, and then and then the Chabad Rabbi said, no, I put my thing on him, and the other one said on him, and everyone comes, and each one they come somebody else. You understand? You have to make sure. You have to look into it. You understand? So Amar Meimar comes and he says, "My kra'ah." Right? What is the pasuk exactly? It says, "Kulach yafa rayati umum embach." Right? What does that mean? There's no mum in the bedin. So it says, "Ema muma mamash." I would say that meant it's talking about a real mum. So Amar Ravacha bar Yaakov Amarkad. The pasuk says, "V'tatzvu sham imach bedomim lecha," which means that the Sanhedrin are going to be standing with Moshe Rabbeinu. So they have to be like you. So obviously we're not talking about them. They have to be miyuchasim. They have to be miyuchas. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu had a very good yichus, right, from Amram and from Yocheved, and then upwards, right, from Levi, and it had to have good genealogy. So too you have to do the same thing. So it says the Gemara, "V'dilma meshum shchina." Yeah, but maybe it's different. Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to the shchina. That's why you have to have good genealogy. So Rav Nachman says, the pasuk says, "Ve'akel me'alecha v'nasu itach." You have to make it easier on you, and therefore they're going to carry the burden with you. Itach bedomim lecha. They have to be domet to you. What does that mean? If you're going to come and you're going to choose people, they have to be like you. They cannot come and, you understand? And by the way, that's what they say, that many times, right, you could have, for example, a big tzaddikim, but when the inner circle is all corrupt, there's nothing to talk about. Because that means there's only corruption. Why is there only corruption? Because at the end of the day, that's what there is. They have to make sure that the people within them are also 100% tzaddikim. Okay, and that's very, very important. So says the Gemara, anybody that has a chazakah that they were part of, whether it's going to be the Bedin or all these things, so therefore we don't have to check their daughters because for sure, right, they were already checked. Are you going to tell me now that you cannot put as a dayan a person that's fasul? Imagine you have somebody that he's half a questionable type of a Jew, type of a genealogy, and I don't know what. You can't put him as a thing. Well, we have a contradiction. Everybody's allowed to done dinin nefashot, dinin mamonot, but not everyone could do dinin nefashot, which means like this: life and death situations. Meaning, if we're talking about a bedin, we're talking about a case of life and death, right? Capital punishment. That no, not everyone is kosher, but to do with money matters. What do you care? You care if the guy's a mamzer, or if the guy's a this, or if the guy's a that. What do you care? Yeah. So Vavina, we have a question. Call that to your mind. Even a mamzer is allowed to done dine mamonot. Abai says, you're right. We're talking about Yerushalayim. In Yerushalayim, it could not be like that. It had to be miyuchas. Meaning, outside in diaspora, yeah, you could have a mamzer, fine. But not in Yerushalayim. In Yerushalayim, you cannot have that. The same thought to Shimon bar Zera, right? In the Tosefta of Kiddushin and everything to do with, right, in the Yeshiva of Levi, Yerushalayim, we're talking about Yerushalayim. Fine. Next. Kabayet tzedakah, also somebody that's collecting tzedakah, also masim lekuna. My time, what's reasoning? Since they get into fights with everybody, they amar more mashklim al tzedakah because they come and they're allowed to even put a mashkon on tzedakah. which means, and even on Erev Shabbat, which means they could even force you to give tzedakah. Again, we're not talking about every single tzedakah collector that comes. We're talking about somebody that comes from the community, and they are appointed from the community to collect tzedakah. So now imagine, right? You're the one that's, right? John Doe is the one that's in charge of the community tzedakah. He comes. Now, if he comes and he tells you, where's the money? Say, no, I don't have. Give me the watch. Until you don't give me the money of the tzedakah, give me the watch. Huh? Huh? You take a mashkon, right? You take a collateral, right? You take a collateral until you give the tzedakah. Yeah? You take the yeah? No, it's not take it out. You take a mashkon. A mashkon is you owe me money. You have to give me a mashkon, a collateral. I don't understand what's so difficult to understand, right? Which means you have an obligation to give tzedakah. So give me a collateral, right? So what happens? See, he says what happens is they get into fights with everybody. So therefore, since they get into fights with everybody, so what's going to happen? If you get into an argument with somebody, what's the first thing they're going to tell you? You're going to come and you're going to tell me to give you something. Your father was this and your mother was a this. So everyone's going to find out. So therefore, a gabet tzedakah, you knew that if there was something negative, meaning a psul, a defect, it would have been known in 2 seconds. So therefore, why? Because they always get into remember, any type of community, especially when you're coming, you're asking for something, right? If you're the good guy, right, then you're only the politician. So yeah, you get all the kavod and everything, and you don't get into fight with anybody. But if you have to be the one, no, I have to take this, and I have to collect, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, and it becomes problematic. So what happens? So in such a scenario, you come to the sense if there was a psul, they would tell you right away. Okay? Ushbezichne de Rav Ada bar Ava Giora Hava. The Balachsanya, right, of Rav Ada bar Ava, right, was the ben of a ger mibat Yisrael. Vava kaminse ihu v'Rav Bevai. And they were arguing, right? Moramar, one of them says, Ana vidna seruta demata, right? I'm going to come and take care of the necessities of the city. Umoramar, I'm going to take care of it. So Atuna commanded of Yosef, they came in front of Yosef, right? They both wanted to be on the board of the city, right? So Amar lehu, so he told them, Tanina, when you want to place a king, you have to place the king from somebody that's within your brothers, right? What does that mean? Any type of high positions that you have to place, right? It has to be from your brothers and not from Gerim. Okay, and therefore, this Balachsanya, he's the son of a Ger, so you can't do it. Even if the mother is a Israel. So Elmaleh Imom Yisrael, no, he says, no, if the mother is a Jewish, so this is also Jewish. Since he's an Adam Gadol b'Torah, he should take care of all the things of the city to do with, right, mitzvot, whether it's tzedakah, whether it's this, he should be in charge. More like, and you're going to come and you're going to take care of the things which are nothing to do with mitzvot. Some take care of, whatever, they have to come and they have to dig something, or they have to fix a road, so that's what you're going to come and you're going to take care of. Yeah, Amar Abai says, Hilkach therefore, man de mashitzu b'merabam shvizchinu, somebody that wants to come and have a tabich cham in his zachsanya, le'ashrei, it's fitting for him to have it, keravada barava, in order to know, to be mitzadeh different zechuyot, which means obviously what happened was that since the person's mother was Jewish, he's 100% Jewish, right? But he just didn't have a good genealogy. So he went and he said, you know what? He flipped it around. Instead of now just saying, he just said, you know what? He's a great person, a big rabbi, so he's going to take care of the spiritual aspects. And the other guy, let him take care of the breakfast and everything else, right? And that's the way it's supposed to be, right? Basically, that the other people, they come and they take care of all the mundane and shtuyot, right? And then the one that's gadol b'Torah, he's taking care of anything which is spiritual. Rabbi Zera metapel behu. So Rabbi Zera, right, was mityaches elem bechavod, right? Rabba baravua metapel behu, and Rabba baravua, right, also was mitapel behu, was mityaches elem bechavod. In Ma'arava, in Eretz Yisrael, afilu resh kore lo makmin menayim. They wouldn't even put, right, them in charge of mishkalot, nothing, right? Which means we're talking about, can you put gerim as a high, position or not? So Rabbi Zera used to give them. Rabba Baravua used to give them, but in Eretz Yisrael, nada. Not even the ones in charge of the checking the weights. When you go to the gas stations, they check, is it how do you call it? Is it properly being pumped or not? Not even that they would give to them. Nothing. Yeah? Benarda, afilu reshka gruta. He says they wouldn't even put them in charge of the people that are getting water from the wells. right? They wouldn't make amash. Yeah. So you see the differences between the different rabbis. Would they give any kabod whatsoever to these gerim or not? Okay, fine. 2 dots. Rabbi Yosef Omer. Rabbi Yosef comes and he says, Af mishaya, right? Even if somebody that's going to be signed as a witness, my time was reasoning. The first thing is to check into the witnesses before signing. Meaning, if I'm already going to check a witness in order to check whether be'emet, right? Somebody is going to be a good witness, whether it's going to be on a get or on a document. You better make sure that they're kosher people, right? You're not going to start coming and getting these people that have questionable backgrounds. Okay, Rav Chanina ben Tanito says, even somebody that's going to be Chayilei HaMelech. Amar Rabbi Yeshua says to Shmuel, Chayilot Shabet David. We're not talking about just people in the army. People that are in the army of David HaMelech. Because David HaMelech only received soldiers that had good yichus. Think about it. Meaning that when you want to come and you want to have an army, so what do you want to check? You want to check their weight. You want to check their stamina, their quickness, their speed, their this, their endurance, their that. No. David HaMelech, first thing. You want to come into my army? Genealogy. Where's your book? Where do you come from? Where do you come from? Where do you go? Yeah. Amar Rav Yosef, what's the pasuk? He comes and he says, right? V'tiachsam batzava b'milchama. The ones which are known in the yichus batzava b'milchama. The time of my what's the reasoning? Amar Rav Yomarav, kadesh lezechutan u'zchut avotam esayetan. In order that they should have their zechut and their zechut of their fathers helping them out. Right? If you remember, we also brought this down to do with shliach tzibur also. What does that mean? We don't want just their own zechut. Because if a person comes, let's say he's a ger, and he's a ger tzedek, chazak u'baruch, so he's got a lot of zechuyot, but he doesn't have zechut avot. We want the zechut of his fathers and the grandfathers and the great. So we want all that to also penetrate. So when they're going out to war, we want to make sure that they all are able to come and to penetrate. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. V'ayika, right? But you have also v'ayika tzele kamuni. Tzele kamuni. My lover, we're not talking about now, right? My love dati Ammon, that he's coming from Ammon. So says the Gemara, no, diativ, right? Be'Ammon. So he comes and he says, oh yes, tzele kamuni. What is tzele kamuni? My love dati Ammon, we're not talking about that they're coming from Ammon. No, we're talking about that they came from Ammon, which means he was living in Ammon. Not that meaning not that the genealogy came from Ammon. He was living in Ammon, right? But he was a full-fledged Jew for generations. So ask the Gemara, Uriah Chiti. Remember, Uriah Chiti was the one that was married to Bathsheba, right? And what's happening is, my love dati mechet, he came from Chet, and then he converted. So therefore, if he came from Chet and then he converted, obviously he wasn't even Jewish. He just converted, and he's there. So now you're going to tell me, oh, maybe that's why David had him killed. No. So why did he have him as a soldier? It says no, diati mechet. He was living in Chet, but not that he was a full-fledged Jew. So ask the Gemara, ve'haika you had itayagiti, right? So he says, you're going to tell me, yeah. He came and he stopped, right? That David took. So therefore, obviously, we're not talking about that. So that means he was a goy and not a Jew, because a goy could come and even and permit it. And also, David HaMelech had 400, right? Like but it says here Bachurim in his 400 in the army. The Kulam, right? Bnei Yifat Toar, but all of them were Bnei Yifat Toar, which means all of them came from the Anshe Atzava of David from Yifat Toar. Everyone understood? One more time. David HaMelech, what is Yifat Toar? When you used to go out to war, right? The Goyim, right? We used to purposely put women on the front lines. Why? In order that if you come and you're going to go out to war, instead of paying attention to, who's fighting you in front of you, they're looking on the sidelines, right? They're looking at the cheerleaders, right? So what happens is that all of a sudden they come, and then then they come and they live with these women and they have children. So when they come and they live with these women and they have the children, that's called Bnei Yifat Toar. Now, when these children are going to come, they're going to be in the army, but they're not Jewish.
But the children will become
so these were in the army. So therefore he comes and he says, the kulam mistaprin komi umegalim bloritayu. And all these people used to come and used to grow, whether it's their hair long, behind their heads, or all these different types of haircuts. And they all used to be in these, chariots of gold. So used to go in the Henin Balegor. These are like the Giburim of David. So therefore, they were Jewish. So therefore, they were amongst the army. So if they were amongst the army, what are you telling me now that David HaMelech only took people which were Yuchas? It's not true. So answers the Gemara, they only went to intimidate, right, the enemy. But in the Milchama itself, they wouldn't go. Meaning these guys were the ones, the bandits, the big guys, they used to go to intimidate. They used to say, oh, look at these Giburim. They're all afraid. But then who were the ones that really went out to war? Only the ones which are miyuchas, right? And that's exactly what was happening. So until we finish the mitzvah, the Mishnah, which was that will continue on. Right?